Mangwanani Mwalelepo Vukenjani Klekwas Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, the news and current affairs show bringing you everything you need to know happening on the African continent and beyond. You are joined by Ashwin Berry. These are some of the top stories we'll be looking at today. Cybercriminal goes to jail after posting a plot to kill South Africa's president, Cyril Ramaphosa. Congo lawyers say they have new evidence on Apple's minerals supply chain. And Mozambique government to invest $1 billion in Pemba port and logistics terminal. We'll also be talking to Talent Gore with regards to the news stemming out of Zimbabwe. Stay with us as we get into the top stories shortly.
Introducing 061 Express, brought to you by Synergy in proud partnership with Windhoek Express. Here's your chance to make your voice heard to celebrate the businesses that make Windhoek exceptional. From your favorite coffee spot to the salon that always gets your style just right. It's time to shine a spotlight on the gems of our city. Over the next 8 weeks, it's your chance to vote for your favorites to recognize the best of the best. Nominations open on the 25th of April and close on the 5th of May. To nominate your favorite business, simply save this number, 085 785 6231, and WhatsApp hashtag 061 Express or scan the QR code below and follow the on-screen instructions. By nominating your favorites, you're not only supporting local businesses, but you also stand a chance to win your share of 50,000 Namibian dollars in cash. The voting process will be the same as the nominations process, using the Synergy chatbot and the hashtag 061 Express. Voting opens on June 5th and closes on June 23rd. Make sure to cast your vote for the best of the best. The winners will be announced on June 28th. 061 Express, celebrating the heartbeat of Windhoek. Get ready to make your mark.
We start our top stories in South Africa, where a Northern Cape man has received a 5-year prison term for cyber fraud after posting on his social media page rumors of a plot to kill the president. Ulriko Kaiser Kasper, 38, was sentenced by DR Regional Court for the incident dating back to March last year. National Prosecuting Authority spokesperson Mozambique Senokotsane explained that the post said some people were planning to assassinate President Cyril Ramaphosa during his visit to DR during Human Rights Day celebrations on the 21st of March. A disruptive operation consisting of the Hawks Serious Organized Crime Investigation Team and the Crime Intelligence was operationalized, and the team located at the said accused, Senokotsane said. He was then taken in for questioning, and he admitted to having posted such, citing the frustration of unemployment. Now, international lawyers representing the government of the Democratic Republic of Congo said on Wednesday that they had new evidence gathered from whistleblowers which deepened concerns that Apple could be sourcing minerals from conflict areas in eastern Congo. In a statement, the lawyers urged Apple to answer questions about its supply chain in the country and said they were evaluating legal options. Apple did not immediately respond to a Reuters request for comment. Congo has been ravaged by violence since the 1990s, particularly in the restive east, where a myriad of armed groups, some of them backed by neighboring Rwanda, fight over national identity, ethnicity, and resources. Congo's lawyers notified Apple CEO Tim Cook on April 22 of a series of concerns about its supply chain and also wrote to Apple subsidiaries in France demanding answers within 3 weeks. The Amsterdam and Partners LLP law firm has been investigating allegations that minerals mined in Congo by several companies and armed groups are being smuggled out through Rwanda, Uganda, and Burundi. Now, the Mozambican government plans to invest around 63.7 billion meticais, or $1 billion at the current exchange rate, to carry out the projects underway at the Pemba port and logistics terminal in the northern Mozambican province of Cabo Delgado. According to the Deputy Minister of Industry and Trade and Government spokesperson Ludovina Bernardo, speaking to reporters in Maputo at the end of a meeting of the Council of Ministers, the government had approved a resolution authorizing the direct award of the contract to Sociedade Commercial Pemba Bulk Terminal Limitada, formed by CD Properties and Portos de Cabo Delgado, to carry out both on land and at sea the construction, management and maintenance of the Pemba port and logistics terminal. Now, Chad's Prime Minister and opposition leader Success Masra has resigned following the confirmation of interim President Mohamed Idris Deby as the winner of the May 6 presidential election. By the Constitution, I have today presented my resignation and that of the transitional government, which has become irrelevant with the end of the presidential election of May 6, 2024, with known results, Masra said on X on Wednesday. Masra, a strong opponent of the junta, was appointed Prime Minister of the transitional government in January 2024, 4 months ahead of the poll, in a move to establish a positive relationship with the opposition. Not long after that, he declared his intentions to run for president in March to return the country to constitutional rule. The oil-exporting country of nearly 18 million people hasn't had a democratic transfer of power since it became independent in 1960, after decades of French colonial rule. Now, in a rather sad note, at least 7 university students have died after apparently inhaling fumes from a generator in a music studio in Nigeria's oil-rich Bayelsa state. The young men are said to have worked late into Monday night and fell asleep in the locked studio with the generator still running. They're suspected to have suffocated from carbon monoxide emissions, but police say investigations are ongoing. 6 bodies were discovered, while one of them, who was found unconscious, was rushed to a nearby hospital but later died, local media reported. Residents of the area raised the alarm when they peeped through the window of the studio and saw the body sprawled on the floor. Now, police arrived and cordoned off the area after moving out the bodies in the Amarata area of Yenagoa, the Bayelsa state capital. Truly saddening news. Indeed. Stay with Africa Good Morning as we talk to Talent Gore after the break, as she brings us the latest news stories from Zimbabwe.
Welcome to My.NA Cars, your ultimate destination for everything automotive.
I am your host, Diana Master.
Teamwork makes the dream work, right?
Discover the latest models, innovative technologies, and expert insights from our passionate hosts. Learn essential maintenance tips and get exclusive behind-the-scenes access to the automotive industry. Don't miss My.NA Cars on NTV every Thursday at 2100 hours. Tune in and ignite your passion for automobiles.
All right, it's time for us to talk to Talent Omkase.
Mamkase Africa.
Tamuka Hedu. We seem to be having an issue with your image there, but your audio is coming through just fine. Now, the Zimbabwean National Army has been successfully sued over the 2019 shooting of a civilian during fuel price hike protests. Could you tell us more?
Yes, in 2019, there was a fuel price hike protest in Harare and other cities around Harare. So apparently people were protesting in the streets, and the Zimbabwe National Army sent out its soldiers into the streets to beat up people and displace those protests. So at least 8 people were killed, while several others were left nursing gunshot wounds and other injuries after the state deployed the army to put down the protests. During that time, President Emmerson Mnangagwa was also forced to cut short a foreign tour to deal with the countrywide protests after the prices of fuel was increased by 150%. He was supposed to end the trip by attending the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. So as the protests spread across the country, the army was quickly deployed into the streets, and Echitungi's man, Felix Mufando Koto, who was shot in the backside, has since been awarded 29,182 United States dollars compensation following a successful lawsuit against the Defense Ministry after having been caught up in the army crackdown on the fuel protests. The victim claims that he was just going about his business and he was not part of the protest, but the army had to shot him at the backside. So ever since 2020, he has been going back and forth to the courts, and just yesterday, the courts said the Minister of Defense and the Zimbabwe National Army, they should award victim 29,000 United States dollars. He claimed that in court, he claimed that he suffered trauma and he has been going to the hospital ever since then, and a lot of things just went downhill for him. So the courts granted him the lawsuit. The court said that the army should compensate him, as this was not he was not in the protest to begin with, and the army had no right to shoot at him to begin with. But the army's argument is that they are not the ones who shot him, when they do not know who even shot him to begin with. But they say that there is no way that a civilian was going to wear the army's uniform and also hold an AK-47 in the streets. That was nearly impossible. So the shot him was the responsibility of the Zimbabwe National Army. So they have to compensate him, and they have to pay 29,000 for the compensation and for the trauma that the victim has been caused ever since 2019, and also how he has been going back and forth to the hospital and to the courts.
All right, Talent. Now in your next story, Zimbabwe has set its sights on transforming the agricultural sector to a 13.75 billion US dollar industry by next year.
Yes. The agriculture sector is that they are planning on transforming the agricultural sector to a 13.75 billion industry by 2025, which is the country had set a target of 8.2 billion for 2022, but reportedly reached 7.9 billion United States dollars in 2020, which necessitated a review to the target. Well, this was said by the government. The government is also saying that since the country is grappling with El Nino-induced droughts, it has sent out 2 billion requests for to overcome the food insecurity situation threatening half of the country's 16 million people. So right now, people are saying that, but you're saying that in 2020 and 2022, we reached our targets. We had a target of 8.2 billion and we almost reached it. So what is the problem? To just use that money that we have within the agricultural sector, or those inputs that we have within the agricultural sector, to cater for everyone, since we are grappling El Nino drought. So what is the problem now? But the government is saying that they need support from other countries and also from the civil society and individuals in the country, if there are any. So right now, people they do not know what the government wants really when they are saying that they have made such money, but they are failing to provide for the people what is needed for them to contain or for them to overcome the food insecurity situation that is threatening half of the country's population.
The perception of misplaced priority seems to be consistent amongst the Zimbabwean populace, particularly when you mention situations like this. And previously last week, as we spoke about the dilapidating National Hospital Parirenyatwa, whilst a new building was being built for a SADC conference, which would last no longer than a week or two, I suppose. So it is going to be interesting to see how the government responds to that, because just first perception from here on the ground, it seems like Zimbabweans are generally not happy.
Yes, they are generally not happy. So it seems like they are missed priorities, as you have said. So we're just going to be monitoring the situation to see how the government is going to be responding to such, because people...
All right, it seems like talent got cut off, but that has been we managed to get into the stories in depth, and that has been our segment on Zimbabwe with Talent Gore. Tomorrow we'll be talking to Mike Sichula about the latest stories coming from Zambia. Let's head on over to the weather before we return with economic news. Getting into economic news stories, Uganda and Russia recently had a conversation on the security issues affecting Africa. Representatives from both countries spoke about the conflict hotspots and the likelihood of attaining a resolution to said conflicts. Russia had also engaged in a similar conversation a week ago with the president of Comoros. A report by the Russian newspaper Sputnik showed that the Russian presidential envoy for the Middle East and Africa, Deputy Foreign Minister Mikhail Bogdanov, had a meeting with Muhoozi Kainerugaba, the commander of the Ugandan People's Defense Forces, during his visit to Russia's capital city, Moscow. There, both parties spoke about some of the issues affecting Africa, including the conflicts across several countries of the continent. Now, Sputnik's report noted that during their discussion on international and regional issues, the Russian Foreign Ministry emphasized conflicts in Africa's hotspots. Russia and Uganda also spoke about other subjects, including the prospect of strengthening bilateral ties in the trade and economic cooperation, as well as combating international terrorism. Now, Turkey is set to construct and donate an embassy building and a plot of land to Somalia at a cost estimated to reach over $6 million, according to a deal submitted to the Turkish parliament. As per the agreement signed between Turkey and Somalia, Ankara will make this contribution in exchange for a plot of land that the Somali government donated to Turkey in 2015. The diplomatic mission Turkey built on that plot in Mogadishu was its largest worldwide, covering an area of more than 61,000 square meters at a cost of $65 million. In return, Somalia is getting 4,918 square meters of land in the insect diplomatic site in Ankara. Turkey plans to erect a 3,000 square meter embassy building on its site, and the agreement allows Somalia the right to sell the land and buildings in the future if it wishes. However, the Turkish parliament must ratify the deal before it can proceed. Those have been our economic news stories. Let's head over to the economic indicators just before we swing over to the sport.
Good day, everyone. Time for international sports news. Starting off with soccer news first is the English Premier League. That is done, but there's still movement on players and coaches. And big news from Chelsea is that their coach Mauricio Pochettino they announced that by mutual consent he will no longer be the coach of Chelsea. He was only the coach for one season, and previously it was Pochettino that also coached Southampton, also Tottenham Hotspur for almost 5 years, and also PSG in Paris. He was the coach of, and it was a consortium of the United States that took over Chelsea a few years ago, and they were in the news throughout the year because they spent $1.3 billion on new players, and it is Chelsea that this season still finished in 6th position, so it is Pochettino that's going to leave the club. Moving on to rugby news, and it's the Springbok rugby team that will play quite a few test matches starting in June, but not good news on the injury front, and news coming in is that Damian Willemse, he's the preferred fullback in the last few games. He's injured his hand, or actually his finger. He need to have the operation, so he's out for 4 months, so he will miss the test matches, especially against Ireland in July. And also it is Lukanyo that's also out injured. He will not play in the final of the European Challenge Cup. That is on Friday when the Sharks play against Gloucester. His injury seemed to be a short-term injury. Moving on to athletics, and good news for South Africa at the Para World Athletic Championship in Japan. Gold medal that was achieved by Mpolelo Mhlongo, and he won the T44 division 100 meter gold. So well done to him. And on to cricket news. It's the Indian Premier League that also continues, and it's playoff times. And it was in the first game, it was the Kolkata Knight Riders that went through to the final because they beat the Sunrisers Hyderabad by 8 wickets. And the Sunrisers will still have a chance in another game to go through to the final. They will play the winners of the Rajasthan Royals and the Royal Challengers. So it's all to play for in the Indian Premier League. And to conclude today's international sports news, it is cycling news. The Giro d'Italia that continues. It was stage 16, over 118 kilometers from Santa Cristina to Grogan. And it's the general classification leader, Tadej Pogačar, that dominated again in stage 16. He won it in bad weather. It was raining quite a bit throughout the stage. He won it in 2 hours, 49 minutes and 37 seconds. Second, Guillermo Palacio, and he was 16 seconds behind him. And then David Philip Martinez in third position. So in the general classifications, it is Pogačar that comfortably lead by 7 minutes and 18 seconds, and that is from Daniel Phillips Martinez that finished third in stage 16, and in third position is Gareth Thomas, 7 minutes and 40 seconds behind the leader Pogačar. The stage 17 will be over 159 kilometers. That's international sports news for today. Hope you have a great sport day, and we talk international sport.
And congratulations to Atalanta for winning the Europa Cup last night with 3 goals from Lookman. Yes, a hat-trick, getting it done and actually ending Bayer Leverkusen's unbeaten run. Let's have a look at the highlights from Africa. Good morning this morning. Cybercriminal goes to jail after posting plot to kill Cyril Ramaphosa. Congo lawyers say they have new evidence on Apple's minerals supply chain. And Russia continues to probe into Africa's security concerns as it speaks with Uganda. Those have been our stories on Africa Good Morning. OneUp2.com, DSTV 285, GoTV 25, and Network Media Hub on YouTube is precisely where you can find us. From me, Ashwin Berry, and the Africa Good Morning team, Suraj Ganaka.